Hey guys, this is Tauna, and today we're going to be going over cards to get potentially, worthwhile before the Avatar reveal. So later next week, we're going to be having the premiere of the Avatar: The Last Airbender set to Magic the Gathering. We've seen a whole bunch of cards already, and it doesn't release until November, but this is going to give us more information about the set and what to expect and everything. Now, I'm very excited about this set, especially as I love Avatar: The Last Airbender. I watched through the whole first one in a couple days, I think it was. Oh, no, it was about a week. I think I watched through it all again because I just absolutely love it. I wanted to catch up before the set came out, and honestly, this set looks like it's designed 100 times better than Spider-Man. All of the new mechanics look better. Everything on it just looks way better than Spider-Man was looking. Now, while we don't know everything yet to be revealed, we do know most of the new mechanics. Assuming there may be one or two that haven't been shown yet, but we know most of them at least, so we can kind of get an idea on what cards to kind of keep an eye out for. So as I said, this is going to be October 28th, so we're looking at about in 8 days, and I'm going to be awake at that time making a video for you guys, so make sure you subscribe to be able to get that. Only 28% of people who watch the channel are actually subscribed. We're trying to hit 25,000 by the end of the year, so, if you make us miss that goal, then I've got kids. I will send them to your house, and you'll have to look after them. So an important note before we start: color identity does not equal the bending style. So waterbending isn't just blue, firebending isn't just red. Why? Because they wanted to actually be more in depth with the system, because characters aren't necessarily, just mono red because they're firebenders. There's definitely, righteous kind of firebenders who are looking for peace, like Zuko. And there's, characters with darker sides that are earthbenders and stuff like that. So, there is more of a preference towards it. So like airbending is more towards white, waterbending is more towards blue, firebending is more towards red, and earthbending is more towards green. But it's not set in stone as to what they are. We may have, there definitely could be like a Demir bloodbender, for example. There's just a lot more in depth to it than just water bending equal blue. So what mechanics? So far, the relevant mechanics that I think that we should keep an eye on are, and I'll go through what the mechanic is, and then I'll go through cards for it. So the first up here is waterbending. So waterbending seems to be essentially them kind of having an additional cost to things, or being either a cost or an additional cost. So you can see here with like Katara, the two versions of Katara, and then the UA here, the waterbending is tied to an activated cost, right? But then there is also the waterbending lesson over here, which is a waterbend tied to an additional cost essentially for that waterbending lesson. So, it's mostly a cost. So that's kind of what keeping in mind. And there has been a lot of activated abilities revealed here. So there is a lot of activated ability ones that I'm not going to kind of cover too much here because of the fact that they are not blue. They are ones to kind of keep an eye out for. All of these guys here, anything to do with like activated abilities, definitely worthwhile. But because of the fact that, not blue, I'm not focusing on them too much. We do have stuff like Biomancer's Familiar here, though, that does make it so your activated abilities of creatures cost 2 less. Definitely, worthwhile. Can't reduce the amount of mana and ability cost to activate less than 1 mana. So, you're bringing it down. But, some of these are like 6 costs. So bringing that down is always good. We've got Training Grounds. Again, just reduce those activated abilities by 2. Agatha's Soul Cauldron. That's an amazing one, because now if one of your pieces get removed, go to the graveyard, you exile it. Now anything with a +1/+1 counter will have that activated ability. Some of them do require tapping, not all of them. But, it's definitely kind of worthwhile. And, you can also use any mana to activate abilities then. So if you've got although most of them are colorless, so it's not too bad there. But either way, handing out your activated abilities is always going to be good. We've got Go-Go. Now we can copy those activated abilities. Really good, right? Let's go back. Let's copy UA's one here. Wait, so now we can cast 3 things or more for, without paying a mana cost. That's amazing. We've got the Omen Hawker here. Just anything that's a mana dork that taps for activated abilities is good, I think. If you've got a deck that's purely around the waterbending. Jane's Wandering Dad is the same, except he also has that Investigator tapped onto there as well. We've got the Enigma Jewel. This one here I really like, right? So it costs 1. It's a mana rock that costs 1, and it taps for 2, only to spend it on activated abilities. So it's a soul ring essentially, but you can only use it for activated abilities, and it comes in tapped. But then you can craft it, and if you craft it, exile things from your graveyard with activated abilities, boom, now it's going to have the abilities of them as well as it copies them. right? That's great. We've got 1,000-year elixir here. Now we can activate them as though they had haste, because again, some of them do require tapping. The Rings of Bright Hearth, Illusionist Braces, those kinds of things to copy the activated abilities as well is always going to be a great idea. Into Firebending. So Firebending is based around whenever you attack. So whenever this creature attacks, add red mana. Now that is specifically red mana, and it lasts until the end of combat. So that's the very end, like the cleanup of combat step, right? So things that are really important here are going to be instants for sure. Like instant abilities are a great thing. Again, activated abilities are really good here because we can mostly activate them during combat, and they don't all require tapping, so we can just pump it full of, you know, whatever. Like, you know, this one here, the Vindictive Warden, for example, pay 3, deal 1 damage to each opponent. If we got a whole bunch of Firebending stuff out, boom. And stuff to be able to allow us to keep this mana around or utilize this mana basically during combat. So Ishin and Wildcrag, I think, are great here because they allow you to double this trigger. Now, Firebending is, as I said, you know, mostly around red, and I don't think there's going to be too many Mardu ones besides that Zuko that's shown there. But, you know, Wildcrag Siege over here is just Boros. So, you know, if it's, you know, Boros or Boros Plus or something like that for a Firebender, you've got that option there. We've got Olivia Voldaren. I actually really like this one because I think that she's going to be sleeper pretty decent in here because you can ping things, either your own stuff to buff it up with her ability, or you can ping opponent stuff and then use the second part of your turn to steal stuff, right? Like with the black mana, and you know, you'll still have that red mana there. So as long as you've got like 2 black mana, you get a whole bunch of mana from Firebending, you can steal something basically at instant speed by, you know, pinging it and then stealing it with her other ability, as long as you got that 2 black mana there. We've got Xantcha, Sleeper Agent. You give her to someone else and her ability you can activate at any time to just draw cards. So she's just now going to be pay 3 of this Firebending mana that you're getting to draw cards repeatedly, and they lose life. It's great. We've got Electro, Assaulting Battery, Leyline Tyrant, Bergie, all ones that allow you to keep that red mana or get additional red mana, right? Like Bergie gets you additional red mana whenever you cast spells, but it also allows you to not lose it. So it's only specifically not lose that mana though. So you can cast things in your first main step, and then in your second main step, you'll have that Bergie mana there to be able to use during combat. But Leyline Tyrant lets you keep unspent red mana. Electro lets you keep unspent red mana. But the one I really like here is Ashling, Flame Dancer, because she has not just that keep that unspent red mana, but also when you cast and copy stuff, you get to draw, discard, then draw, or you get to deal 2 damage to each opponent, or you get to add more mana. So if you're casting instants during combat, which, you know, is a great thing to do, like combat tricks or whatever, because you've got all this red mana during combat, boom, you've got that there. We've also got Horizon Stone. Now all that unspent mana will just turn to colorless mana. That's good. I like having colorless mana as well, because now I can use that colorless mana for a whole bunch of different stuff. We've got Captivating Crew. Now, you can only do this one during, as a sorcery. So if you've got the stuff that lets you pump a whole bunch of red mana in, and then you've got the stuff that lets you keep that red mana around, you've got Captivating Crew. This one's not so great. I just kind of like it in case you do have a whole bunch of red unspent mana sitting there, because it's just a repeatable, like, pay 4, steal something. It is only until end of combat as well, but potentially there's going to be some sacrifice stuff, because I suspect that Firebending is going to be more around Rakdos kind of thing. So it could have some sacrifice stuff kind of built in there. Who knows? It's an option at least. We've got Soul Bright Flamekin. Now this one is amazing. 1, you can pay 2 to give something trample. You can do that during combat. 2, if it's the 3rd time that you've done it. So if you make 6 red mana, right? Because of, Firebending, right? Now we're going to give 3 things trample, and we get a refund plus an additional 2 red mana. That's great. It's amazing. We've got Ashling the Pilgrim, another Ashling in here that lets you pump it during combat, and then you can also use her to deal damage. Now, you may want to not kind of wipe your own board with it, keep in mind, so you do need some way to either protect your board, or you just pump her up 2 at a time, because when the 3rd time it resolves, you're going to remove them all and deal damage, but you don't necessarily need to do it that way. We've got Valdakran Ordinary or Winding Canyons, just let you cast anything at instant speed, you know, give any of your spells flash. That's great. Now in combat, you can flash in a creature or a strong enchantment or something. High Fate Trickster, Leyline Anticipation, Wrath Capuchin, the same kind of thing, right? Give stuff flash. So flash is going to be great with Firebending decks, because now you can, flash stuffing during combat, use that red mana that's meant to only be during combat to do other stuff with it. We've got Lithoform Engine. So now the reason that I had this one in here was to copy the triggered abilities, right? So if you've got, you can either copy the triggered abilities with the red mana that you've got during combat, or you can use that red mana to pay to copy activated abilities that you might activate during combat. So, you can use it either way, or copy an instant, right? Like it can work with a whole bunch of different things here, because you can just get that free mana during combat. You can utilize it with Lithoform in, honestly, a bunch of different ways. You can even copy like a permanent spell if you're flashing something in, right? We got Staff of Domination. So, Staff of Domination, again, you've got this huge amount of red mana during combat. You can pay 3 into the Staff of Domination, untap something. Then you can pay 1 to untap your Staff of Domination. Do that again. Or to tap an opponent's thing, or to just get card draw, right? Like, it's going to be great with Zuko. We've got Hellkite Charger or Savage Beating, both ways to get additional combats during combat that also let you get, let you do it at instant speed, right? And use that mana. So, Savage Beating, boom, you're going to get a whole bunch of extra, you get an extra combat, you give stuff double strike as well, or the Hellkite Charger. Hellkite Charger with Firebending will likely be a very, very, very easy infinite combo, because you just need to attack and get, 7 Firebending mana, and then boom, pump it into the Hellkite Charger. Additional combat. You'll most likely get 7 additional. Boom, do it again. Just do it over and over again. Jeweler's Flame, Outrageous Robbery, Commune with Lava, all very strong instant speed cards that you can use during combat. Jeweler's Flame from the new Final Fantasy VIII scene box here, that lets you give a target blocked creature you control +X+0 trample, and when it deals combat damage to a player, look at that many cards from the top of your library, exile 1, and then you can cast it without paying its mana cost. Great instant. Outrageous Robbery, steal a whole bunch of people's cards. Commune with Lava, exile things from the top of your deck and then be able to play them until the end of turn, right? Like end of your next turn as well. Like there's a bunch of different uses for these, like instant speed, big mana dumps that you can use during combat. Outrageous Robbery is obviously, got black in it, so you do need to keep up 2 black mana, but you can just play on your second main phase if you don't decide to use it. Rev, Tithe Extractor, so things that steal from opponent's stuff to just give you additional stuff to use is great, and stuff that lets you also use mana of any color to do that with. Rev, I don't believe does it. No, she does the treasure and use the treasures to cast it, but she does give target attacking creature Death Touch, which is good because, you're vulnerable, which brings us into Reconnaissance. Reconnaissance is amazing. If you don't have Reconnaissance, go pick up like 3 copies of it or something like that, because it's just so useful. Any deck that wants to do combat and is white, Reconnaissance is going to be great, because worst case, it is a pseudo vigilance on every creature. Best case, it lets you avoid your creatures dying, or, just untaps. There's just a huge amount of different stuff that can be useful with this. All right, into Airbending. So Airbending lets you exile permanents. Specifically, it talks about permanents. I don't know if you can airbend non-permanents, but we'll see eventually. And it's also non-lands. But it lets you exile it, and then you can cast it from exile for 2 mana rather than its mana cost. Now, keep in mind, you can do this 2 ways. You can either airbend your own stuff to protect it, and then cast it for 2 later on. That's amazing. Or you can use it on opponent's stuff. Exile their stuff, and then they have to, pay 2 later on to cast it, which is great. So, this is hilarious, because now opponents won't be able to cast their spells from exile. So you can exile their permanents, and then they're not going to be able to cast it. Drannith is a game changer for a reason, but in an airbending deck, oh boy, it's amazing. We've got Aven Interrupter. Lets you make it so opponent stuff costs 2 more to cast from exile, so now they need to pay 4 to cast something from exile. But you can also use it as essentially a white counter spell because you flash it in, it exiles a target spell, say their counter spell, and then it becomes plotted. Then they can only cast it as a sorcery. This is hilarious. We've got Panharmonicon because white-based decks with Airbending very much could look at like a flicker deck. And I think a lot of people are looking at like a flicker bounce kind of like, yeah, a flicker blink kind of deck, right? So extra ETBs is going to be great there. Guardian of the Faith I really like too because you can flash it out, protect all your stuff, right? That's all great. Then you can airbend it. Now you've got a 2 colorless mana, essentially phase all your creatures out, sitting in exile that you can cast at any point. Because this is not you can cast it, you know, only at its sorcery speed or anything. You can just cast it at any point. So boom, now you've got a 2 mana protect your whole board thing. We've got Hero of Bretagard. So this one here is whenever you exile one or more cards from your hand or permanents from the battlefield, put that many +1s onto it. Then if it's got 5 +1s, it becomes an angel and gets flying. And if it's got 10 +1s, it's just counters actually, on it, then it becomes a god as well. So because you can potentially use this to flicker, like this deck could be built around flickering your board, blinking it, then paying 2 to bring it back in, you can get this up very easily. We've got Interdimensional Webwatch. Just tap it, add 2 mana to cast things only from exile. I like this card. I think this is a great card. Just lets you cast one of those things from free for exile. There's cheaper ways to do it though. Like, you know, we've got Okatraz, Monument, Pearl Medallion, White Wind Crystal makes it all your, you know, either all your white spells cost 1 less or all your white creature spells cost 1 less. We've got Vega the Watcher here, makes it so that whenever you cast something from other than exile, because you do cast those things from, you know, from Airbending, from exile, you pay 2, and now it's pay 2, bring that creature in, draw a card, which is great. Extraordinary Journey. Now whenever one or more non-token creatures enter the battlefield, if they came from exile, which, you know, either from your exile or you've exiled opponent stuff, boom, now you get to draw cards. That's great. I really love that card. There's a million different things in red that care about casting from exile, whether it's Copy It, like Spider Vessel Nalfeshni. We've got Wild Magic Sorcerer that gives them Cascade, Passionate Archaeologist, Ping Everyone, Prosper gives you treasures. You know, there's a bunch of stuff. Now, this is reliant on there being a Airbender that has red in their mana cost. I could have seen some versions of Aang having red, especially that one version of Aang that is, you know, the headliner of the set. He has red. He will do, like, you can have Airbending in that deck, definitely, and then you could build it like a full exile deck, and it will work really well. And then there's a whole bunch of cost reductors as well. These are not white. They're either, you know, blue, green, or you've got the red here for the Party Thrasher. But either way, you know, there's definitely some ways to be able to cast stuff from exile for cheaper and stuff. It just depends on what your commander ends up being. If it's assumedly not a mono white one, but, you know, if it's white blue, you've got options. If you're white blue green, you know, a ban to Aang, there definitely could be a ban to Aang. Boom, you've got options there. And then, you know, there's other stuff that are legendaries that care about stuff coming in from exile. Callum the Kid is amazing. Whenever you cast something from exile, you may cast a permanent spell with mana value with equal or lesser mana value from your hand without paying its mana cost. Now, keep in mind, when you exile it, it's still got the same mana cost. You cast it for 2, but the mana cost could be like 5, right? And then you get to cheat something in for 5 or get an additional land. Ketramos is great because you get to draw cards, get to lose life, potentially turns it into a creature if you keep things in exile. And then the War Doctor, whenever it attacks, gets to deal damage based off of things in exile and gets those time counters based off of that. Anticausal Vestige, you know, this is just a great card. You can play it for 4, then you can airbend it if you wanted to, then you can cast it for 2 later. Or you can, you know, if you don't airbend it, you cast it for 6 later. And whenever it leaves, you get to draw cards and cheat stuff onto the board. All right, so into Earthbending. So Earthbending is specifically making your creatures into lands, right? So it's target land you control becomes a 0/0 creature with haste, and then it gets additional +1s on it based off of whichever card it is. And then if that creature, so the creature land, dies or is exiled, you return it to the battlefield tapped. So far we've seen mostly green with this, but we have seen some, you know, black cards. There's a green-black guy from the Dali that has it. I can't remember what his name was, but the leader of the Dali has it as well. So, you know, we've got green, black, caring about +1/+1 counters, caring about lands. So, you know, Eudora is great here. Eudora is actually bonkers here, because now whenever your creatures die, they will come back as lands. You can then animate those creatures, right? With Earthbending, turn them into creatures. Now, when that creature dies, creature land dies that's face down, it will die and it will come back. However, when it comes back, it will come back face up. So you just essentially reanimate your creature. We've got any number of the green blue things that care about land creatures. There's, Tatiova, there's Jolral, there's Joti, I assume that's how I pronounce that. Either way, land creature stuff. That's reliant on you having blue in your mana cost, though. We've got Black Panther Wakandan King, cares about white in the mana cost, though. So you need, doesn't care about, has white in the mana cost, so you need green, white here. But he does let you buff up your creatures, or you can also move. So if you've got a 0, like say you've got a 0/0 that's got 3+1s on it, you use Black Panther to move those off of it. That land dies, goes to the graveyard, comes back. However, you get the life gain, you get to do a bunch of different stuff with that. So that's, decent potentially. You might not want to kill your creatures with it, but it's an option. Embodiment of Insight, stuff that cares about, again, land creatures, give them vigilance, because why not? Now you can swing in with all of them, and then also use them for their mana later on. Nissa makes it so you get to turn a land into a creature, and then also makes it so your forests tap for an additional mana, and also lets you give your lands indestructible, because that's a great idea. Gitrog Monster, sacrifice your lands. You can play additional lands. You can draw cards. Keep in mind, if you sacrifice your land and it's already got Earthbending on it, it gets sacrificed. It comes back anyway. And then there's ways to have your lands enter untapped, which is great. Ashaya. Now all your non-token creatures are lands. So now you can Earthbend your creatures. Keep in mind, it will set them as 0/0s when you do Earthbend them, but it does make them so when they die, they come back. So, it's a trade-off. Potentially, it's better to Earthbend them, because then if you have like Branching Evolution or Hardened Scales, which you won't find on this list because they're, cheap as hell, you can, get heaps of +1s onto them. We've got Sylvan Safekeeper, sacrifice lands, give something Shroud. Great, and then because your lands come back as well. Why not? Kamal's Will, turn all of your lands into creatures that are Vigilance, Indestructible, Haste. Keep in mind that the ones that are already creatures will just get an additional +1/+1 now, because of the fact that they go from 0/0s to 1/1s, which is good. It's not much, it's not great, but it still buffs up your whole land. And because you have a whole bunch of land creatures matter stuff potentially in the deck, it's going to be great there. And as well as the fact that it's removal too, it's got removal built into it with like a fight spell, or not fight spell, a bite spell. We got Entis Restoration. I love Entis Restoration. It's one of my favorite cards. Sacrifice a land, tutor up 2 basics, put them onto the battlefield. If you got something 4 or greater, tutor up 3 basics instead. However, in this deck, it's even better, because now you can sacrifice your lands, bring them, the land comes back, and you get additional ramp, right? So it's paying 3 to ramp for 3 in a lot of circumstances. Lands enter untapped is great. Horizon Explorer, Spelunking are great examples of this. We've got Constant Miss, Exploration Broodship, more stuff to sacrifice your lands with Constant Miss. Just sacrifice your land, it comes back, you get to Earthbend it, do that again. Just, you're not going to be able to take creature damage, basically. Exploration Broodship here lets you cast things from your graveyard by sacrificing a land in addition to its cost. That's great. We've got Scape Shift. This is going to be absolutely freaking huge ramp, because now you've got, say you've got 5 creatures out, right? 5 creature lands. You sacrifice all of them. They'll all come back in as lands that are tapped. Then you also get to tutor up those lands. Great. Zuran Orb. Sacrifice your lands, gain 2 life. Boom. The lands come back anyway. Terra Eternal. Now your lands are indestructible, so you can attack with them willy-nilly. It's fine. Earth Surge. Each land gets +2/+2 as long as it's a creature. It's an old card, and it's not great in a lot of decks, but in this deck, in an Earthbending deck, it would be good. We've got Wilderness Reclamation. Just untap all your lands that are also creatures at the beginning of your end step. Seedborn Muse, obviously, as well, is huge, but I went specifically with this one because it's not as commonly known, and you get to just, untap all your lands. Squander Resources, sacrifice your lands, and then they come back anyway. Reserve List card that just went up a whole bunch because of that. Edge of Eternities, Precon, and it's great. It could be great here too. Anything that lets you keep your counters is going to be good. Resourceful defense is great for that. Ozolith, great for that. You know, keep your counters on things and then just move them around as your land creatures leave. Any kind of +1/+1 synergy as well. I'm not going to go too much in depth into that. You guys know what +1/+1 counters do. You know how much synergy there is with them, whether you're proliferating them, whether you're giving the creatures with them reach and trample like Sphere Creators, which is an amazing card, or just get a huge amount of card draw with Terror Symbiosis. All right, finally, we've got Ally Matters. So Ally Matters. Ally is a creature type that is going to be returning with this set. I'm not sure how much Ally Matters stuff we're going to be getting, but there's been at least a fair bit shown where it's either creating ally creature tokens, buffing up your allies, you know, getting to, not tutor. What's the word where you look at the top 4? Look at the top 4, get an ally equipment or lesson, put it into your hand. You know, stuff to do with allies is here. So, General Tazri. If you've got a 5-color ally deck, now you can, when she enters, tutor up an ally, put it into your hand, but you can also pay Wooburg to buff up all of your creatures by, you know, 5 potentially, +5/+5. That's great. We've got Seagate Lawmaster. I'm not going to go too much into Look, okay, allies are very reliant on other allies. They, you know, or at least a bunch of them are. It's like draw a card for each ally you control, add mana for each ally you control. Here, whenever an ally enters or it enters, creatures you control get indestructible until end of turn. We've got Jari Shapeshifter. It enters as a copy of any ally. That's a great one. I really wish that it kept its name so then I could bring it in copy Katara, but either way. We've got Resolute Blade Master here. Whenever it or another ally enters, boom, creatures you control get double strike. So this is great because of the fact that some of these here are like, you know, Suki. Whenever she attacks, create an ally that's tapped and attacking. Now you're going to give your creatures double strike at not instant speed, but during combat every time. We've got Adagim Occultist. Put target creature card from an opponent's graveyard onto your under your control, equal to the number of with mana value less than or equal to the number of allies you control. So you can just steal opponent's stuff. We've got Seascape Aerialist. Boom! Now all your allies have flying. Realm Walker. Let you cast your allies from the top of your deck. Zada. I did not realize Zada is an ally, but this is incredible because now whenever you cast an instant or sorcery targeting Zada, it will copy onto all your other allies in your deck. We've got Semester's End. There's a bunch of different allies that care about, like, you know, when it enters, based off of your allies, do XYZ, or, you know, just flickering them. It's also great protection. It's just overall a great card in a deck that potentially wants to bring all your allies in at once, in my opinion. Even if you flicker 1 or 2 things, when it's like whenever an ally enters, each creature you control gets +1/+1 or something like that, then boom, now you're getting a huge amount of triggers for that. March from the Tomb. Reanimate allies up to mana value 8 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. That's great. I actually went and picked this up because I was at my local EB Games and they had a copy of it. I'm like, okay, I'll grab that for 10 cents. We've got Distant Melody. Draw cards for each ally you've got. Kindred Dominance, Patriarch's Bidding, Razor Palisade. Just anything that cares about creature type matters is going to be great here. We don't know entirely what color ally matters is going to be. Primarily, it seems to be every color, but focused mostly around green-white. But either way, you know, there's going to be a bunch of stuff that you can use that is just, I care about creature types. Boom, I have all my creatures. Kindred Charge. Boom. Now all of your, for each of your allies, you're going to create a token that's a copy of each of your allies, which is huge because, as I said, you know, a whole bunch of allies are, whenever an ally enters, do this. Now you can get to do that. And again, and again. We've got Door of Destinies. Boom. Whenever you cast an ally, put a charge counter on it, and then all of your allies will get, you know, +1/+1, +2, +5, +10. You get to do an insane amount of ally stuff. The Hero's Resolve, again, I said about, you know, the ally matters, the, you know, caring about when allies enter and stuff like that. This lets you do that. At the end step, you get to exile any number of non-token artifacts or creatures you control, and then return those cards to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of your next upkeep. So you get to protect your board potentially. You do leave yourself vulnerable if you don't leave some protectors, but then also at the beginning of your next upkeep, bring them all in, and then potentially get a huge burst of stuff going on. Descendant's Path. At the beginning of your upkeep, you get to reveal the top card if it's an ally. put it onto the battlefield. Oh, sorry, you don't even put it onto the battlefield. Sorry, you cast it without paying its mana cost. And then 3 Tree City and Ally Encampment. Both great lands, both good for ally decks. Both, you know, like 3 Tree City gets you get a whole bunch of mana. And because of the fact that ally decks can vary into, like, you know, up to 5 colors, this is going to be good because you can choose the color when it happens rather than like choose it when it enters or something. And then Ally Encampment just lets you cast an ally with that mana cost there. So that's it for today. I know this was a rather long video, but hopefully you guys stuck it out. And hopefully I provided you with some great cards to keep an eye out for. I'm not going to say guaranteed that all of these are going to go up or any of them are going to go up, but I definitely could see, you know, if the Avatar set is as popular as I think it's going to be, some of these are going to be great to kind of pick up for an some kind of, you know, earth, fire, water, air bending deck. I hope you guys had a wonderful day and goodbye.